Hello, hello, people. Wait. Oh, hello. Wait. Am I recording? Wait. Hold on. Let me talk. Let me talk to my. Let me talk to my recorder. Okay. Yo. So am I recording?
Yeah, you actually are.
Oh. My. Okay. 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 When is my editor coming back?
About in 2 months.
Oh. Okay. Okay, I'm back. We are watching The Secret Family for Kindergarten Family Secret. What?
Sharpen up your pencils without breaking the tip off of
Yep,
the
that's
machine,
true.
because today's school is back in
Yes!
session. We're talking
Yes!
kindergarten. And the
I'm
question on
already in
everyone's
school, so,
mind, what
yeah.
is the deal with Nuggets?
What are you doing here? Nugget thought he took care of all the people at the end of his last game. Nugget does not want another Nugget theory. Nugget has some delicious golden rounds in the microwave right now. Cannot be bothered with your paltry theories.
But Nugget, what else would we talk about? It's kindergarten. This is practically your game. There's not like there's a whole lot of story here to...
Wait, oh god. Sorry, I did it.
Verizon 5G Ultra Wideband has speeds up to
Oh my
25
God.
times today's 4G networks, and it's already available in parts of select cities, so businesses can innovate like never before.
I hate okay.
Nearly out of contention, leaving us with only one story here to work with.
No story? No story? Oh, my little dum-dum. Of course there's lore here. There's a story at work in my game that eludes your little pebble brain. This theory goes deeper than the Nugget Cave and gets darker than the inside of Agnes's dumpster. Oh, hi! Yes. Nugget has quite the theory for you today.
My brother just did that, so sorry. Okay, spot. Dude, why does it have a yellow? It's supposed to only be green and... What the? Okay, I'm not gonna curse.
Hello, Internet!
Running
Welcome
your
to
childhood
Game
since
Theory, where today we're revisiting one of my
2011.
favorite games of the year, Kindergarten. Now, I don't know about you, but to me, Kindergarten was that special time in life where things were just a little bit simpler. When the
Yeah.
edgiest life got was a pair of safety scissors, and the coolest kids were the ones walking around with clear gel glue in their art box. But if video games are to be believed, this formative year of education has certainly got a bit more cutthroat since I was last in school. Apparently, it's now a world where the adults are all out to get ya, and the other kids are hiding weaponized lasers just waiting for their chance to assert playground dominance. I guess we've really adopted the mantra of survival of the fittest in our school system. Anyway, if you're not familiar with Kindergarten or its sequel, first off, just go play the games. Catch up. They're short, they're cheap, and they absolutely deserve to be played through to completion. And heck, in most of the endings, lots of children wind up on the wrong end of the janitor's mop, so to speak, which, you know, is kind of the tentpole programming for this channel, meaning that you're probably going to enjoy your gameplay experience. The premises of both Kindergarten and Kindergarten 2 are to basically survive the day while helping your fellow classmates and teachers with totally brand-safe plots that they all have in place, which include finding more mystery pills, growing their black market empire, or brutally finishing off their twin brother in a bid to claim sole ownership over their dad's billion-dollar corporation. You know, typical activities for a normal 5-year-old. Kindergarten 2 features the familiar faces who managed to survive the first game. Bugs the bully, Jerome the ex-principal's son, Mean Girl Cindy,
The best one. Nugget.
Sure, smart salesman Monty, plot device Lily.
Nugget likes the pretty Lily.
If you say so, since I'm not in an age bracket to judge the looks of preschoolers, as well as adults like the drug-addled Miss Applegate and murder-prone janitor. But the sequel also introduces some new faces into the mix, like the principal who experiments on kids, her daughter bot, Professor Giant Forehead, and Bob, well, just a really nice janitor. Yeah, he's just really sweet, so, he's not gonna
Yay.
last too long in this world. As the game unfolds, we piece together information that helps to build backstories for many of the characters that are a lot deeper than you'd expect for an 8-bit game that only takes a few hours to play. For instance, we know that Cindy's background is littered with domestic issues, drinking, divorce. We know that Miss Applegate has a long-standing struggle with substance abuse, and that Penny underwent some horrific physical trauma that made her into the android that she is today. But of all the characters, no one's backstory is more intriguing, more heavily guarded than the janitor's. I mean, even though we end up fighting giant sci-fi monsters in the cave under the school building by the end of the game, the janitor really is the game's main antagonist, as he ruthlessly mows down students and faculty alike, even taking out his fellow janitor, Bob. It is the janitor's code, after all. Told you Bob wasn't long for this world. In Kindergarten 1, we quickly established that the janitor regularly bumps off children for little to no cause. Everything from talking to him too much to correcting his grammar. And he states several times that he's not even supposed to be in mop length of children. As we help him to forge his trail of destruction, small bits and pieces of his backstory get leaked out. But it's nothing all that meaningful, at least until one random line in Kindergarten 2. Reminds me of my son. Dirty, ugly, and I gave him away. Excuse me, what? The murderous janitor has himself a secret son? I don't know what's the biggest revelation here. That he has a kid, that he didn't kill the kid, or that he found himself a lady friend who was willing to me broom closet in the first place, if you know what I mean. Regardless, this is a huge reveal for a character that's largely remained shrouded in old, cranky murder.
Could someone volunteer for me? Hold on, I'll get some people here. Who would be number one? Who would like to do it? Me. I can't. Where are you? Me. Oh, over there. There you go. So your new, new person is Spikes, the baby hedgehog. I'll go get the lights because it's so freaking dark. Okay, we will be watching the video. I may sound like Nugget, but I'm very stupid. I'm just kidding. I'm very smart. I'm smarter than can you say it? Narrator, how do you say it? You say it like... I actually don't know. You pathetic. Okay, so let's get back to the video.
Mystery. No, it could just be a cool Easter egg. A throwaway line mixed in for the lulz and to lightly flesh out this mysterious character. But in these games, the details that you learn about each character tend to factor into the gameplay in one way or another. For instance, you learn that Nugget has a behavioral disorder that he's being medicated for.
Okay, did I miss anything? Get out of the
that
way.
information pays off because it explains why he always has pills ready to give to Miss Applegate. Jerome is an egomaniac in the first game. But again, this pays off when the player can use that hubris to get access to his dad, the principal. Likewise, in the second game, we learned that Penny was in a tragic accident as a baby, which plays directly into her existence as a robot during the course of that game. These details don't tend to be random. They're built in so we can either use them as logical clues for gameplay, or at the very least paint a clearer picture of the kindergarten universe. Sure, the characters in these games may be relatively thin, but the details that we learn about them certainly aren't arbitrary. So with that in mind, it seems fair to ask, is there a connection between the janitor's backstory and what we see happening in the game? In other words, we know that the janitor has himself a secret son that he gave up at an early age out there somewhere. Could that son be one of the kids that we see in either of these two kindergarten games? To find out, I scoured every storyline and every dialogue tree across both these games to see if any other characters dropped hints about their backgrounds. Details that would potentially imply that they were abandoned by an evil, hateful, rage-fueled member of the custodial staff. And shockingly, I think I found it. I think we have ourselves not just a viable candidate, but a probable one. Kindergarten's most closely held secret is that the janitor has a son that attends the very school he's working at. he doesn't even realize it. And that, my friends, is what we're exposing today. Like an episode of Maury, we're opening up that manila envelope to tell the janitor that yes, he is the father to one of the kids that you see up on stage right now. But which one? Matchmaker, make me a match. Given the janitor's age, Monty notes in Kindergarten 1 that he's an octogenarian, which puts him in his 80s. Almost no one is off limits, but the janitor does specifically say that he abandoned a son, so that immediately eliminates all the female characters across both games. We won't include the hall monitors as an option here because we never really learn all that much about them, other than one likes smoking, cats, and smoky cats. Same goes for all the generic kids that are being used in experiments underneath the school. They're just not important enough for us to care, so stay in your test tubes like good little kids. So with that, our list of potential secret sons looks like this: Billy, Bugs, the twins Felix and Ted, Jerome, Monty, and Ozzy. Equipped with our father and a list of potential sons, it's time to play Reverse Mamma Mia and match the kid to the parent. Now, we can take some of these out of contention pretty quickly. Billy is known to be a twin with his sister Lily, and the janitor never mentions also abandoning a girl, so we're gonna take him off the list. Same goes with Felix and Ted. The janitor says he abandoned a son and not sons. We also know that Jerome's father was the principal from Kindergarten 1, so that knocks him out of contention, and already we're down to half of our original list of contestants on Who's Your Daddy? Monty, Ozzy, and Bugs. The new guy in this trio is Ozzy, who we meet for the first time in Kindergarten 2, which also happens to be the game where we first learn about the janitor's secret son. Coincidence? I think so. Ozzy's whole MO is that he doesn't trust the new kids, which, gotta be honest, is probably a good decision considering that they help forward plots that get him bumped off in multiple different playthroughs. The only other things that we learn about Ozzy is that he's got himself some OCD, a bad case of asthma, and that his mom runs a successful company. The janitor never mentions anything about any of these things. In fact, the two characters never interact at all, which would make it a pretty difficult theory to float. Not even I can stretch that far this time. Moving on to Monty. We actually have ourselves the complete opposite story. Whereas Ozzy and the janitor have no connection whatsoever, Monty and the janitor are constantly at odds with each other. We know in the first game that the janitor sells Monty the school's supplies, so they're briefly in business together, but when Monty corrects the janitor's spelling, all alliances are thrown out the window. In Kindergarten 2, Monty gets himself some revenge by blasting the janitor out of existence with a laser. So, unlike Ozzy, there's at least some history here to go off of, but let's be honest, the two share absolutely no traits whatsoever. Monty's a smart, savvy, extremely literate 5-year-old who's more interested in becoming a killer businessman than becoming a killer. So it doesn't make much sense that he'd be related to our old buddy the janitor, who is violent and street smart, yes, but is definitely not book smart. Monty solves problems with his mind, and the janitor solves problems with his mop. In fact, in Kindergarten 1, Monty's mission is the only non-violent mission in the game, so I think that takes him pretty squarely out of contention, leaving us with only one real contender left: Bugs. And as a viewer of the show, you've probably come to expect that I've saved the best for last, and you'd absolutely be right. At a superficial level, it's interesting to note that Bugs and the janitor are the only two male characters across both games with gray hair. Sure, that could be because the janitor's in his 80s, but for Bugs, a 5-year-old kindergartner, it's an odd detail, especially given that none of the other kids have any sort of gray hair. Nugget, by the way, is canonically a blonde, just in case you were wondering.
My locks are indeed golden and luxurious.
On top of that, from going through all the dialogue in both games, the only characters in the game who are considered just in case you were wondering.
My locks are indeed golden and luxurious.
On top of that, from going through all the dialogue in both games, the only characters in the game who are considered ugly enough to make comment on it are, you guessed it, the janitor and Bugs. First, in Kindergarten 1, the janitor mentions that you don't want to wake up in 20 years and look like me, do ya? He also specifically mentions that his baby was ugly. Then again, in Kindergarten 1, we have Monty telling the player that I wouldn't want to look like Bugs either. But obviously, all of this is superficial and tenuous, right?
Wow.
Two ugly characters with gray hair, big whoop. No amount of mild insult is gonna make Bugs the janitor's son, so we need to look a little bit deeper for something that's really gonna stick. Luckily for us, and tragically for Bugs, we learned very quickly in the first game that Bugs comes from a broken
Game
home.
theory,
It's
please
very
not.
clearly established that Bugs was abandoned by
Yeah,
his dad
I
at an early
abandoned.
age, saying,
Hate me.
quote,
My dad will come back. He just went to the store to get
get some cigarettes is all.
Abandoned, just like the janitor abandoned
Yeah,
his young
I'm so
son.
bad.
And don't you dare suggest that his deadbeat dad was anything but a stand-up guy, because if you do, Bugs is gonna beat the snot out of you, leading to his second connection with both dear old dad and also the janitor, solving problems with violence. Bugs is the school bully largely because of his disappearing dad. He says repeatedly throughout the first game that he resorts to violence purely because it's gonna make his dad proud.
My dad will come back. Get out of here, I'll beat you so hard I'll make him proud.
And again, in a different section of the game,
What do you want? Come to make more jokes about my dad before I beat you to death? He'll be
You
so
wanna make
proud
me
of me.
beat
unlike
you?
Monty and Ozzy, Bugs just seems to have an inbuilt violence streak, just like our favorite member of the school custodial staff who spends all day threatening to pound, punch, or stab kids to get what he wants. Interestingly enough, research in the real world from places like the University of Washington have shown that kids that are exposed to violence or come from homes with domestic issues are statistically more likely to engage in violence with their peers in the real world. In other words, kids who get bullied at home are more likely to be the bully at school. Now, I'm certainly not
That's
implying that all
actually
kids who
really
witness
true.
violence go on to become bullies in the real world, but for our purposes, Bugs, as the classroom bully, is statistically more likely to have had a violent parent. A parent who solves problems just like our good buddy the janitor over here. But not only is Bugs violent, he also has a long-standing history of covering his tracks in much the same way that the janitor hides his crimes. In both Kindergarten 1 and 2, we see the janitor burying bodies himself, or we help aid and abet him in doing so. And wouldn't you know it, in Kindergarten 1, we do the same thing with Bugs, where we're enlisted to try and convince Nugget to hide a bloody knife for us on Bugs' behalf in the Nugget Cave. While the player's talking to Bugs about the cover-up, he says,
You want this thing hidden where no one will ever find it? Trust me, I know from experience.
confirming that this isn't Bugs' first time at the murder weapon hiding rodeo. It's a line that could have just as easily come out of the janitor's mouth. But if good looks and sharing a love for committing murderous violence and
my dad.
subsequently covering it up isn't
Nah,
enough to
nah,
prove
I'm
that
just
these
kidding,
two
I'm
are
just
cut
kidding.
from the same branch of the family tree, Sonny and Pop here also share a few other specific habits
Yeah,
that
it's
clinch
true.
their
It's
relation.
true. It's true.
Kids are depending on virtual classrooms, which means having the most
I
reliable
hate
network
virtual.
is
I
vital.
hate online school. It really sucks. I almost lost that year. Okay.
relationship. In Kindergarten 1, the player needs to trade with the janitor for a powerful laser gun, and depending on your inventory, you can actually offer a few different things in this trade. The first one is pills, but the janitor isn't interested in those. They're also not particularly relevant to us since Bugs never mentions a propensity for pills. The next option is cigarettes, which the janitor says that he'll take in a pinch, but adds, some ciggies? Haven't had one of these since I was your age. In the moment, it seems like kind of a ridiculous thing to say until you realize that this habit apparently runs in the family. At another point in the game, you have an opportunity to foist over the same cigarettes to Bugs in the schoolyard, to which he responds,
I've been robbing kids so I could buy these from Monty.
meaning that Bugs is actually smoking at his age, just like his dear old dad did. He's the only character who smokes, other than the much older hall monitor, so it's an unusual detail to include here. But the janitor's preferences in this trade-off actually give us our biggest smoking gun for this theory. In that same laser trade-off moment, the last thing that you can offer the janitor is a flask, which he readily accepts, saying that Cindy's got the best stuff. Okay, give me the flask and you've got yourself a deal. It's the only thing that he actually wants, which doesn't necessarily seem out of character, but takes on a whole different light when you consider what Bugs misses most about his dad. At recess, Bugs tells the player
I miss everything about him, even the way he used to drink excessively.
he goes on to tell the player how he cherishes the memory of his mom forcing his dad to use a breathalyzer, as well as the flask that his dad used to use to get drunk. Wait a minute, a flask, you say?
A flask? Oh, it's just like the one my dad used to get completely hammered from. Thanks, buddy.
When you offer to give Bugs the flask, he's so grateful to have this connection with his dad that he gives you a Monster Mon card. I'm telling you, if the Bugs janitor connection wasn't intentionally put into this game in the first place, well, there's enough evidence here to at least make a theory about it and definitely include it in Kindergarten 3. Any way you slice it, in all of these cases, Bugs and the janitor are the only two characters to share these sorts of preferences. Really, they're some of the only characters to share any sort of preferences in this game at all. And from their looks, the psychology of a scarred
Yeah,
childhood,
this is so
the
okay.
fact that Bugs was long-lost, or rather long-abandoned son. The apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, and if Bugs somehow manages to survive an entire year of kindergarten, well, we can probably expect him to follow in his father's bloody footprints. Now my only regret is that I couldn't also tie Agnes the dumpster hag in as
Okay, I'm back.
all their products. I love what they do, and
The stuff. It was actually very surprisingly good. Okay, let's watch. Look at say.
good night, Mabel.
Good night, Dipper.
Gravity Falls, it is good to be back.
Yeah, you can talk now.
Hello, Internet. Welcome to Wreath with destroying your favorite show's perfect endings one by one. And today is going to be no exception. Partly because Gravity Falls is a show that I never want to end, but mostly because when you look at how this show actually ended, the evidence points to there being much more to this story than we saw play out on screen. Now, the show's final trilogy of episodes at first glance does pretty much everything that a great series finale is supposed to. Family grudges are forgiven, loved ones are saved, and evil is finally defeated. But rewatching the finale, there was one thing that just didn't quite sit right with me. In the finale, Bill Cipher, evil Dorito of Gravity Falls, travels to our world.
Hold on. Hold on. Does he mean this Bill Cipher? Yes, I drew it. I literally drew it. It's all by myself. Yes, I drew it. Yes, I drew that. Okay. Oh ho, Gravity Falls, it is good to be back online.
Create the apocalypse he calls Weirdmageddon. However, once here on Earth, he realizes that he's trapped in Gravity Falls due to the town's
Natural law of weirdness magnetism.
In order to escape and spread his reign of weirdness to the rest of the world, Bill has to get inside the mind of one man, Ford Pines,
No, that's
resident
me.
genius, paranormal
me.
investigator, and great uncle to our heroes Dipper and Mabel. However, this requires that Bill make a deal with Ford by shaking his hand. To defeat Bill once and for all, Ford and his twin brother Stanley switch clothes to trick Bill into making
Say, I'll give you $1 million, and only if you subscribe. Do we have a deal? Nah, I'm just kidding. Yeah, but for real, subscribe. Oh ho, Gravity Falls is good to be back.
the deal with the much less able-minded Stan. With the deal made and Bill now trapped inside Stan's head, Ford uses a gun that can erase memories on Stanley, wiping out everything in his mind, including Bill Cipher himself. Stan, in a moment of pure heroism, makes the ultimate sacrifice, losing himself, losing his identity, and losing all memories of the loved ones he left behind. For about 3 minutes. Yeah, it's not all that much of a sacrifice as it turns out, as Stan's memories come back in less time than it takes to mix up a blender full of Mabel juice. So what's going on here? Well, thankfully, journal number 3 gives us a little more context on how all this happened. Quote, it turns out that the memory rays effects can be undone through exposure to important images and people from your past. The reason Stan recovered so much faster is that we began recovery while the erasure was still fresh, less than an hour after contact. End quote. But at this point, you've probably figured out where I'm going with all this. If all of Grunkle Stan's memories weren't permanently wiped out, would that also mean that Bill Cipher wasn't permanently wiped out? It's a question that fans have been asking for the past 2 years. Is Bill Cipher, the main antagonist of Gravity Falls, really dead? And I am here today to tell you no. Bill Cipher is alive and well and living in Paris with Jacques Brel.
Hello, Internet, and welcome to Game Theory. Okay, Game Theory, please do
Sorry.
not record this video.
Sorry, never mind that last bit. It's a
Yeah.
really obscure musical
Yeah.
theater reference that no one, and I mean no one, will get. In all seriousness, though, looking at all the evidence from the end of the show, as well as content that's been released after the series ended, points to Bill Cipher still kicking around. And not just kicking around. What we unearthed today will not only change your thoughts about the end of the series, but also everything you thought you knew about one of your favorite characters. Intrigued? Excellent. Grappling hook away! First, we can absolutely prove that Bill isn't dead. During the finale, when Bill was trapped inside Stan's mind, Bill decides to make these strange noises. These are his last words of the series, so you'd think he would have chosen his words a little more carefully, or, you know, just chosen words. But here's the thing, he actually did choose those words very specifically. The only reason why it sounds like gibberish to us is because he's talking backwards. Just reverse the clip, and you get this. Invoke the ancient power that I may return. Okay, that makes it pretty clear that he ain't planning on leaving this mortal coil anytime soon, but what's all this about?
Wait. He was returned by Axolotl. Axolot? Oh, the Axolot, so... Yeah.
Out an axolotl. Well, it turns out that the answer is given to us in a book titled Dipper and Mabel and the Curse of the Time Pirate's Treasure. Now, this book was confirmed to be non-canon, except Alex Hirsch, the creator of the show, tweeted that it does contain one enormous canon secret. So in the book, Dipper and Mabel end up face-to-face with this all-powerful cosmic axolotl, and are each granted one question. Dipper asks the very responsible and very logical question of, what do you know about Bill Cipher? To which the axolotl replies, quote, 60 degrees that come in threes. Watches from within birch trees. Saw his own dimension burn, misses home, and can't return. Says he's happy, he's a liar, blames arson for the fire. If he wants to shirk the blame, he'll have to invoke my name. One way to absolve his crime, a different form, a different time. End quote. Gotta love those classic rhyming couplets. Now, look at those last few lines. Invoke my name to absolve the crimes as a different form in a different time. Yeah, this is pretty obvious why Bill was chanting in reverse right before he was literally brainwashed away. And presumably the axolotl granted his wish, preserving him in a different form and a different time. That's a pretty strong case for Bill still being alive, but if that's truly the case, then that begs the question of what new form could he possibly be in? Well, why not the form that he was already trapped in? Grunkle Stan. And that isn't just speculation. Most of the post-show content that's come out, and believe me, there's been a lot for a show that's been gone for 2 years, has signaled pretty heavily that Bill Cipher continues to exist within Stan's mind. Case in point, the Cipher statue hunt. Shortly after Gravity Falls ended, Alex Hirsch made it very clear that there was a real-life Bill Cipher statue hidden somewhere in the US, and that in order to find it, fans would have to solve a worldwide treasure hunt. And while that is absolutely cool in and of itself, the most interesting part of this whole thing was that it appeared to be led by Grunkle Stan. One of the very first clues to the hunt was a phone number. When you called it, you would be greeted by this answering machine message. Immediately, you can recognize Stan's voice, but something's a bit off. It's in reverse. Now, this definitely could just be some attempt to make the quest slightly harder, but it's worth noting that every time a character has ever spoken in reverse during the series, it was because of Bill. In the episode Dreamscapers, Gideon speaks in reverse after reading a chant that summons Bill. In A Tale of Two Stans, Ford speaks backwards after falling into a dimensional portal and seeing seeing Bill. Not to mention that every single opening theme ends with whispers in reverse before we're greeted with a flash of the cipher wheel. Every time someone speaks in reverse on the show, it seems to be in association with Bill Cipher. So the fact that we catch Stan Pine speaking in reverse over the phone is already incredibly suspicious, but the evidence doesn't just end there. All objects found throughout this treasure hunt tended to be related to either Bill
The heck?
or Grunkle Stan. There were Stan Bucks, a jigsaw puzzle of Bill Cipher, a golden Stan head, and a few other recordings of Stan giving out clues. It was always these two characters that the Cipher hunt kept coming back to. An odd choice when considering that there were so many other characters that fans would have loved to hear from. You know, like the heroes of the show, Dipper and Mabel, or Seuss, or Wendy, or literally anyone else associated in this series. It's almost as if the creators were hinting towards a connection between Bill and Stan. Eventually, the fans found the Bill Cipher statue, and beside it was a chest filled with some pretty interesting things. There was a Journal 3 book that had a drawing of Stan, Ford, and Seuss, but if you hover a black light on this page, you'll find Bill Cipher drawn in with invisible ink directly next to Stan's head, once again indicating that he's alive and well, and suspiciously close to Grunkle Stan, but there was something else in there that definitely caught my attention when I was researching this theory. In the chest, there was a USB drive of Grunkle Stan singing We'll Meet Again by Vera Lynn.
We'll meet again. Don't know where. Don't know when.
It's an important song choice to make note of, since it's the exact same song that Bill Cipher sang to Ford Pines in the Gravity Falls finale.
We'll meet again. Don't know where. Don't know when.
Coincidence? In this show? Yeah, right. Stan
Some sunny day. Okay. 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 Here are your contestants. This is the like button. This is the subscribe button. What should I pick? What should I pick? Any, many, miny, you. No. Any, many, miny, you. Bobcat? Yes, you. You are both of them. Subscribe and like it back. Okay. We'll meet again. Don't know where. Don't know when. Oh, well, make me meet again some sunny day. Yeah, I love it. I really should stop doing that. It's just making game theory look bad, okay? I'm sorry, game theory. You have to look at this.
goes on to congratulate you on finding his statue.
Hey guys, congratulations on finding the mysterious treasure of the statue in the forest.
A very interesting choice of words, to be sure. Then shortly after, he recommends that you shake the statue's hand.
Shake his hand, that's kind of like a prize.
We've already gone over how Bill Cipher is notorious for making deals that require shaking his hand, and Stan knows this as much as anyone else, so why would he be encouraging us to shake Bill Cipher's hand as if that's some sort of prize? Unless, of course, this isn't Stanley talking. It's Bill. Bill talking through Stanley, encouraging people to shake his statue's hand in the real world, potentially as a means of trying to escape from the body he's already trapped in, trying to make a deal through the statue. Seemed like too much of a stretch? Honestly, I thought so too at first, but we already know that Bill can mimic someone else's voice when he's in their body because we've seen the exact same thing happen before on the show, specifically when he was controlling Blendon Blandon, the time-traveling agent in the episode Mabel and Dipper versus the Future.
Oops!
So it's definitely plausible that the person we're listening to isn't Stanley at all. But I I know, there's still one big problem that I'm sure a lot of you will be asking in the comments. If Bill is still alive and is somehow controlling Stanley, then why in the finale aren't his eyes yellow with an elongated pupil? The signature look of someone who's under Bill Cipher's control. Well, it's because Bill only controls Stan when he sleeps. Now, before you run down to the comments to tell me that that's a huge leap in logic, hear me out here. It is canonically something Bill has done in the past, specifically with Stan's brother Ford. In the official Journal 3 book, Ford describes a deal that he made with Bill 30 years before the events of the show. A deal where he let Bill enter his mind and control his body. But during the terms of the deal, Bill could only control Stanford's body when he was sleeping. Page 118 of the journal. Quote, I awoke this morning to find that my muse was true to his word. There in my notebook were 6 hours worth of beautifully written calculations, perfectly sufficient to keep me on schedule, end quote. What starts as a mutually beneficial relationship, though, quickly deteriorates as Ford starts to fear Bill's influence and actively tries to stay awake for fear that Bill will continue taking control of his body again when he falls asleep. Page 142, quote again, I fell asleep on my cot only to awake sitting at my desk staring at the strange symbols inscribed below. He is taking advantage while I sleep, end quote. This tells us that it is very possible Bill is only controlling Stan at night. Notice how in the cipher hunt we never actually see Stan's face, only a bunch of pre-recorded audio files that could have been set up in the middle of the night. So there you have it, a theory on Bill Cipher being alive and trapped inside Stanley's mind. I think there's a lot of evidence for it, but you know, while I was researching this theory, it struck me. It's pretty crazy how close these two characters are with each other. It's almost as if they've been connected on a deeper level since the very beginning. I mean, they're the only two characters who both refer to Ford as Sixer.
Hey, what's the word, Sixer?
A deal's a deal, Sixer! That's a pretty weird coincidence. They both tell people to buy gold before the impending apocalypse.
Buy gold. You've been buying gold, right?
They even do that whole eeny, meeny, miny, you thing.
Eeny, meeny, miny, you.
Eeny, meeny, miny.
One way to absolve his crime, a different form, a different time. In the episode The Inconveniencing, Mabel has a hallucination where a giant dog talks backwards. He tells her to... We've already established how backwards talk tends to relate to Bill, and now we have someone speaking backwards telling us not to trust Grunkle Stan. I know he had a couple secrets within the show, but none of them were so serious that it was cause to really distrust him. This even puts a whole new meaning on the cryptogram found in the title sequence. Stan is not what he seems. All the Gravity Falls theorists just kind of brushed that one off as a reference to him having this secret twin, but what if it was referring to something else the entire time? Could it really be possible that these two characters are actually one and the same? Guess that's a theory for another day. In the meantime, remember, reality isn't real, the universe is a hologram, and that's just a theory. A film theory.
I hope you're happy watching the video. Yeah, film theory and game theory. Yeah. Oh my god. But for real, subscribe to them. They're literally smarter than me. I'm not lying. They're smarter than me. I literally didn't know that. To be honest, I actually kind of did on the end, like, where it's like, and remember, that's just a theory. A bobcat theory. I hope you subscribe, like the video, yeah.